One Piece chapter 1027 is out, and even though it had a lot of pages, it felt just as short as last chapter. The cover story this week is of Roger drawing a lion and then running away as it chases him. Now, the first thing I thought about was kind of Roger versus Shiki, and this probably isn't a nod to that, but it just, whenever I see Roger and Lion, that always comes back. We also have Shanks and Buggy hiding in the tree because they are probably being chased by a lion too. And this also looks like around the time that we saw in the flashback for Roger, just because everyone looks around the same age, so this is probably a couple of years before he went back and sailed for One Piece. The chapter starts with the aftermath of the hockey clash. Basically, the clouds have parted and we're seeing all the effects it had on the people who noticed it. We have Wanda and Carrot checking on Nekomamushi after he took down Perospero. And we have Wanda mentioning that the moon is still out and she's warning Carrot to be careful not to go into Sulong again. And generally I feel like Oda doesn't waste panels for certain things, so this seems like a call that Carrot might be going Sulong again. It just feels weird that she would mention that particular thing if it wasn't going to happen again. We as an audience already know how Sulong works, so we know that if they catch a glimpse of the moon, they're going to go back into Sulong. So Wanda doesn't really need to give us that exposition. And then we have Yamato and Momo looking at the same interaction, and at first I thought it was just Yamato thinking about what Oden said in his journal, but I had forgotten that both Yamato and Momo have read that, so they both know about Whitebeard and Roger's clashes and how they split the skies. So they're seeing some of Oden's words come to life here. Within the dome, they obviously can't see what's going on, but they can feel it. The entire dome is shaking, it's breaking apart even more. By the time all of this is done, I really feel like Onigashima is going to be a pile of rubble. And we can get more into that later because we find out that Onigashima is practically a bomb. Yamato starts reeling from the after effects of her fight, and it shows that Kaido really is a monster because even though Yamato guarded up and was in hybrid form, Thunder Bagua still did some nasty damage to her. Her head is bleeding kind of profusely, and I would imagine she needs to get that taken care of, which could be the time for the person who healed the scabbards to kind of help out Yamato. Now, I don't know when they would have the time to do this, just because we've got the new plot of Yamato and Momo trying to stop the island. So when that might come into play, I'm not entirely sure. It might not. Just an idea. Luffy basically tells Yamato to take Momo and get out of there because Momo's still a scaredy cat, which is true. Momo hasn't gotten over all of his fears. He's been kind of powering through a lot of his fears and insecurities up until this point, but he still has them. I mean, he still has the mentality of an 8-year-old. So Luffy is basically trying to get him out of here. Initially, he's hesitant to jump off the island, which makes sense because he still has that latent fear of heights. And in this case, Yamato and Luffy kind of have to hold Kaido back for a couple of seconds while he kind of gets his nerve. But he eventually jumps off. And once he does, Yamato kind of explains to him again how dragons fly. Now, we had this explanation before from Yamato way back when Kaido first started using his flame cobs to lift the island. And we've also seen Momo use this ability before, but he did it unconsciously. He did it out of fear and he wasn't really sure what he was doing. So we knew he could do this, we just haven't seen him do it in this new form. And now that Momo kind of has this general control over his flame clouds, we've introduced a new plot to how we're going to stop Onigashima. Because one of the things we needed was for Momo to have control over this. He has to combat Kaido's clouds in some sort of way to stop Onigashima from falling. At the same time, we get the update that Kaido's basically weakening, or at least his control over the flame clouds holding up Onigashima is weakening. And this might be because he's got to concentrate more on fighting Luffy now. We have to remember, Kaido's been in a fight for the entirety of the raid. He started with the Scabbards, then he went to Roof Piece where he was fighting 5 of the Supernova, and then he switched to just fighting Luffy, and then these back and forths of fights, he started fighting Yamato too. All these strong people, it makes sense that, maybe he can't hold the clouds as much anymore. And this is still a crazy feat because he's been through all that, and it's not like he immediately just shut off his clouds. It's just that they're weakening a little bit. He's got to concentrate more on this fight. It's taking some of his power away. By this point, Onigashima is very close to the capital, and if it falls, either way it's doing damage. We also get the update that it's basically a bomb, so even if it falls next to the capital, even if it falls on the capital, it's going to explode. That's an additional effect. It's not just going to hit the ground and destroy everything. It's going to hit the ground and basically be a nuke. And while it's probably not a huge effect, I wonder if it's just that, Onigashima has all the gunpowder and weapons, or if it's that the flower capital also has things there that might explode. I'm not entirely sure where they keep things stored in the actual flower capital, but just a side thought. This kind of gives us a weird time crunch because Yamato mentions that if Kaido carries it over to Onigashima, they're doomed. And if Kaido falls before it gets to Onigashima, they're also doomed. Because if the clouds, basically if Onigashima falls in any way at all, they're done. Now, Yamato's idea is to use Momo's clouds to kind of combat Kaido's, which even in a weakened state, I don't think they're necessarily weak enough to be outright countered. I think something else has to happen to take the flame clouds away or to weaken the control some more. And as Momo mentions, he doesn't have full control over this ability. He doesn't know exactly how it works or how Kaido is doing it. So it's not like he's just going to be able to use it exactly like Kaido is. Essentially, I think this is going to break down into a tug-of-war type deal between Kaido and Momo, and eventually Kaido might switch his attention to taking on Luffy and have to go back to the clouds. I don't think he's going to be able to hold up both for the same time, which is going to give Momo enough time to move Onigashima back away from the capital. Back at the life lore, we see that King has gone into hybrid mode and he is letting it loose on Zoro. And the majority of the kind of fight snippets we get here are Zoro getting knocked around pretty far. So I'm wondering if it's an after effect of the drug. Is Zoro still, well, we know Zoro's not at 100%, but is he unable to, I guess, guard as well as he normally could, or deflect even? He gets knocked into Frankie at some point, but he does reassure Frankie that he's got it, so I'm not entirely worried about it. It was just something I noticed. And then some of the fodder pirates tell us that Zoro managed to crack King's mask, and this is why he's so mad. Basically, no one's seen his face before, and Zoro cracking his mask is kind of edging us to that point where we're about to see it. Now, this is an immediate reminder of Katakuri and how he didn't want people to see his face. We even both had them as the first commanders. I think in King's case, this has more to do with trying to keep his race a secret than it does Katakuri trying to hold up an image. The important question that stems from that is, why is it so important that people don't know what King's race is? I can understand him not wanting people to know his full identity, but we know people like Big Mom and seemingly even Queen know who he is or what race he is. So is there a reason he's keeping it a secret from like the fodder? Is there a reason he's not letting the Straw Hat see it? Why is he hiding it at this point? And if he's been hiding it this whole time, how did Big Mom figure it out? They clash again and King's mask cracks a little bit more, so it looks like King is taking the fight outside of the live dome to somewhere where people can't really see him. Initially this knocked Zoro off the island, but he's got his own kind of skywalk in which he bounces back onto the island, so he's fine there. And this is good to know just in case. I don't think we're going to have like a lot of scenarios where Zoro is falling off something, but it's good to know that he has contingencies for this kind of thing. The chapter ends with a cliffhanger of us getting a little glimpse of King's face. Now it looks like he has light colored hair and he appears to have a tattoo over his eye. Now I don't think this is a character we've seen before. I think he's new, and I don't necessarily know why it's so unforgivable for his face to be seen. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a direct giveaway to his race, because I feel like there's more to the race than just the face, but I think the true answers lie in the tattoo on his face. And of course, that could just be a blood pattern. That's not guaranteed to be a tattoo, but it looks like something's there. And his face would have to have some kind of indicator that, he's from a different kind of race. There has to be something there that makes us think, okay, he's from maybe the Lunarians, he's from some kind of race that we haven't seen before. Now, of course, we can't count out the idea that it's more of a gag. It could be like Katakuri, where he just doesn't want people to see his face because he's got a weird nose or something. We can never underestimate the power of gags in One Piece. But now that we've been given the plot point that Zoro is cracking his mask, we're definitely going to see his face before the end of this fight. In fact, I expect us to get more Zoro and Sanji vs. King and Queen chapters, so we'll probably be seeing it sooner than later. And if it does have something to do with his race, we'll probably get an expository dump, whether it's related to Sanji, whether it's related to Lunarians, whatever it may be, we're probably going to get that in the upcoming chapters. Overall, thought it was a good chapter. Again, it felt really short for like having no double page spreads, being like the same amount of pages. It just feel like it rushed by, and there was a lot of action, but there was a pretty decent amount of dialogue, so I'm not really sure why this one felt as fast as the one before. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. There will be a poll in the description below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.